Who doesn't love a great dashboard? Building dashboards is actually pretty difficult in Coda because there's so many different ways you can do it. I'm going to show you some best practices from years of building dashboards for clients in this video below, both beginner and advanced tips towards the end. So let's go. All right, so what we've got here is, first of all, a badly spelled word. But besides that, we have three different tables, all right? We've got some raw data, and from it, I'm gonna show you how to build a rich dashboard. I'm gonna teach you so many different fundamental Coda skills, both with formulas, as well as with charts, configurations, and best practices. You're gonna love it. Stay to the end though, because I got something for you there. As we begin though, let's just look at our data. We've got products and tasks, right? So these tasks are for their products. So this is a team that needs to develop product specifications for a smartphone. They need to design a user interface for a smartphone. All these tasks have, of course, an urgency, a status, and a team member, as well as a description, and they're all tied to different products. The last table that we have is a team. So how do we start getting a dashboard from this? I think first we just ask, what is a dashboard, right? What's the purpose of a dashboard? A dashboard is really supposed to give us high-level insights into shapes or patterns of our data to understand what's actually going on. What's the story behind this data? So we've got a lot of different tools available to us to build dashboards. And the first are charts. So let's just look at charts, how they are. You're also gonna see some unique limitations with charts, and I'll show you how to overcome those. Let's just first get our task table in here. All charts in Coda is a different view of a table. So we always start with a table. And when we have a table, we can take that table and we can say options. And then here are all the different ways we can display this single table. As a table, cards, detail calendar. Under more, you're gonna see charts. So instantly I've got this chart view of my tasks. When I go to display, I can start configuring this in different ways. You have some different charts you can build, such as timeline, bar chart, pie chart, line chart, and so on and so forth. But let's just do our pie chart right now. And instead of by due date, let's do it by urgency. So we can see that we have this chart here. Now I have our task by urgency. Now here's a best practice thing that I think you should do. First off, let's take it and make it a wide view, and we can even make it wider. And then from there, what I always like to do with my charts is I always hide the title. Then I always give it a H2 or an H3 heading. And from there, you're gonna say tasks by urgency, okay? And then what this allows you to do is give you a subtitle for explanations. If you keep the title hidden here, there's no way to get a subtitle to like explain what's going on. This just gives you a lot better way to show and explain what's going on in your graph. So we could say, here are all the tasks separated by urgency. You can even then give more data and information with our canvas controls, and I'll show you that in just a bit, but let's just make one more graph real fast. I'm gonna quickly just copy this table. That's the fastest way to do it. Copy another one, bring it up here, and now let's filter this out, and let's just make it a different thing. Instead of by urgency, let's go by status, right? Not started, in progress, complete. We can also change the colors up if you'd like. You can display it differently. Donuts. I have a whole video on charts though, so I'm not going to go deep into charts except to show you that it's here, and you can watch that other video if you need. Not started, we'll just make complete green. What then I'm going to do here is also make another one of these. We can then push this right here, push this right here, and now I have task by urgency and we have task by status. So that's one of the first tools you have at your tool belt, but there's other ways that we can kind of display this as well. So one of those ways we can do it is something called a canvas formula. How you can do a canvas formula is use your / command and start typing summarize, right? So I can summarize a table. The table I want to summarize is probably tasks. And let's filter it. Let's count the rows. We can say, well, we don't even do that. We can just say total tasks. We can say urgent tasks, right? We can also use our equal sign here. So that's one way we can do it. Summarize table. And I'm gonna show you how to get just the urgent tasks. Let's go tasks, summarize, where the urgency is high. Now you notice how it's 13 and want to count them. Great. Urgent tasks. That's one way to do it in a no-code way. If you want to use some Coda formulas, you can press the equal symbol on your keyboard. It brings up a formula, and now I can simply say tasks.filter for where the urgency is equal to high.count. Count all those for me. Notice that it gives us the same number. Once these are here though, kind of looks a bit ugly, right? So what we can do is we can kind of put them side by side. And then you can make them in callouts. I think callouts are nice. Callouts are pretty. Gives them kind of just a nice stylistic look. We can give them little graphs and charts here. So we can say total, and then we can say urgent. We can even change the symbols here to match different colors, kind of draw your eye to different things that are happening. So that's a few of the things you can do, but there's a lot more data we might want to get from here. For example, what if we want to know how many tasks by product there are? This is actually a tricky problem, trickier than you might think. So let's go here and just try it with our tasks first. If I try tasks and say, hey, you know what? Tasks, become a chart for me. After you become a chart, let's do it by products. This looks kind of crazy, doesn't it? Not totally working. What if we do a pie chart? Ooh, okay. What's going on here? We can count them, at least that gets us closer. There's 7 with smartphone, but smartphone shows up all over the place. You'll notice here, smartphone, right? Smartwatch. It's everywhere. So what it's doing here is it's showing you the unique combinations. It's saying there's one task that has this unique set of 3. So what if we want to know just one by one? What you're going to do here is actually you're going to make a view of the products table. But the products table doesn't yet have information about these tasks. So we need to first find out how much tasks per thing there are. An easy way we can do this is make this relationship. So this right here, this column is a relationship column. We need to make it bi-directional, that it's in both places. What you'll do is you'll click on the options, column options, make sure that that column is created. Once I do that, you'll notice that that column then shows up here. You'll see that all those tasks that are for a smartphone are here. So what I can do now is I can add a related column. No, insert column. Let's just do this the easy way. What I'm going to do is make a text, and I'm going to say number of tasks. Then I'm going to come in here and say tasks.count. Just count my tasks. Okay, great, awesome. We can unwrap that. Now that we have this task here, this does show us the number of tasks that are associated with a smartphone. Now that we have that, we've added that extra information. We can go to our dashboard. Instead of having this table here, we'll do a table of the products itself. We'll show that as a chart, and we'll show the number of tasks sum. There we go. Look at that. Now we've got the number of tasks. We can even take this and we can, push it over here if we want to have 3 views. And what I would do is hide that and of course give it another one of these. Put it there, move up. All right. Tasks by product. The beautiful thing about this is that we can also make our dashboards dynamic. One, they're going to update in real time, right? I have, that's actually not summarizing. Let's make that count. You'll notice that this all updates in real time. Obviously, low, number 22. I can go ahead and change one of these to low, and we'll go into our dashboard, and you'll see that now there is 23. Okay. But what if we want different data from our dashboards? You can provide controls that are actually going to change the information across the dashboard. So let's say we wanted to find it by due date. All right, our tasks all have this due date here. What if we wanted to find it by month, right? So I've got ones in January, and I've got other ones in, just one here in December. Okay, so I've got across different due dates. Let's put a control here. I'm going to press /date range, right? So view data for. So all of a sudden now we have a control that we can come in and change and view data just in the last 90 days, just in the last 7 days. Or maybe we just want to view it in these 2 weeks. We can do that. But what we're going to need to do here is we're going to need to make this connected to the entire dashboard so it reads from that. I'm going to show you how to do that really quickly here. So what you're gonna do, this is a control and it's called date range 1. We can call this whatever we want, date range, okay? What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna filter the due date so that it uses a canvas control, the one that we just created. You'll notice how that now changed. I'll do the same for these. All right, so now what I've done, you'll see that this changed, right? This is still summing, so we'll make that count. All right, this is saying though that there are 13 tasks that are not started within this case, right? I can go and say everything. You'll now see that there are 34. So these two update, but how are we gonna get these to update? That's our next question. They'll notice that these are pulling from tasks. I don't necessarily want to pull from tasks. I want to pull from this is called the master table. Notice how it has no link there. This is have little links. These are the views. The master table will always return the full list no matter what. So we want to actually pull from the views. So let's pull a view 2 of tasks. And then we should be able to find that. Let's see which our view 2 of tasks is. We can call this task by urgency. There we go. Okay. Let's go to task by urgency. Let's call it task by urgency. And that's saying 47. Okay. So what we want here is to now see if this changes. 47. Okay. Let's see if that changes when we just go to this week. Ooh, yeah. See, now that changes. 10 task by urgency. There's 5 there, there's 4 there, and there's 1 there. That's 10 total. That matches. Okay, so we can do the same here, right? We'll do task by urgency. Now that updates, you'll see all of that update. Lastly, how are we gonna do this? This one's not updating yet. I'll show you this real fast. This is connected back to these tasks. So let's rename this column so it's a bit more clear. I'm gonna call this all tasks. What we're gonna do now is we have to filter this. So number of tasks for dashboard. So instead of just saying count all of them, we don't want to count all of them. We want to filter for where the due date is greater than or equal to the date range dot first. So our date range filter here is actually just a list of 2 values. So if I say next 7 days, January 4th and 11th is what this is matching. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say where the due date is greater than or equal to date range dot first. And the due date is less than or equal to date range dot last. Okay. Then lastly, we'll count those. Now, if I go back to my dashboard, you'll see this changes to update. If I do everything, that will completely change to update. So that's how the basic introduction to a dashboard. Stick with me once more, and I'm gonna show you one more advanced piece of kind of data manipulation with something called a helper table. All right, so we have our dashboard that is dynamic and changing based on the user selection so far. But let's say we wanted to do something like figuring out how many tasks were completed during a certain range by day. Okay, what we could do, and this is actually probably gonna be the wrong way to do it, is we're gonna have a table of our tasks. We are gonna turn it into a chart that is by the due date, and we're gonna filter that chart so that the status is complete. That's by due date, first of all. Second of all, none of these numbers are in a row. Third of all, it skips gaps, right? You've got 120, you've got 1230, where's 1231, right? None of this really makes sense. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna make something called a helper table and aggregate and store all of our information there. So what we're gonna want first is a table. Okay, so you're gonna want a table of just dates. There's a lot of ways you can make this table of dates. I'm gonna show you an AI way as well as a formula way. Your AI way will be control space for AI. There we go. And I'm going to say make a table of dates starting with December 31st, 2023. Include 30 rows. Okay, you can tell it to do that. It's going to make rows. There we go. That's one way to do it. That's great. That's awesome. But what we're going to do first is we're going to figure out where all our rows are that were done on these days. So let's go here and let's say completed on this day. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I need to find out when they're completed. I know that it's completed, but this is just the due date. How do I figure out when it's complete? We can do another formula for that. We can say completed on. And what I'm going to say is a formula, and this formula in this column is going to use a formula called modified, right? We don't want to know just when the whole row was modified, though. I want to know specifically when the status was modified. I'm going to change it to a date, okay? So this shows me the last time the status was modified. Now you'll see that I made this table on a random day on the same day. So everything was modified the same day. But watch, this is 12/21. I'm going to change this to in progress. You'll see that that changes to 1/4. Anytime that that is modified and changed, it changes to the day it was modified on. We got a problem with this though, because it's calculating everything. So we're going to deal with that with a filter. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our dashboard and we're going to say a formula here. I'm going to find the rows that were completed on this date. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say tasks dot filter for where the completed on is equal to the date of this row and the status is equal to complete. Okay. So now you'll see that on 1/4 this was complete. You'll see that nothing else is really there, but let's go. Well, let's make one more on 1/4, right? So I'm going to change this to complete. Now we should see up in here, that would show up 2, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this as a helper table to show these day by day. I can use this table as a chart. I'm going to display the date in the bottom, and I'm going to display the completed count. Let's see, values, date, count. Nope, that's not what we want. Let's go one more time, change this. Let's do a text and say equal completed count. Okay, I've got 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We're gonna show this as a chart. We are going to show the completed on this day text. There we go. So that will bring the 2 in. And then you can imagine if this was actually real data, it would show a nice dashboard of how many were completed each day. Watch this, magic. Ooh. All right, here's some more data now. We've just inputted some more data in, and you can see the number by the day. And we're gonna do just one more thing, and it's gonna get a bit more advanced, but I think you're gonna love it. We're gonna make a rolling average, right? Because this is like, okay, 0, 0, 0. What if we wanted to know over time the stacking number that are completed? I'm gonna show you how to do that real fast. Let's take this helper table. We're gonna turn it into a table again. This is just the number completed on this day, but by this day there's 3 total complete, and by this day there's 4 total complete. So how are we gonna add up these numbers day by day? Let's make a new column and just call it rolling total. And what I'm gonna say is I'm going to say, first I need to find the rows before, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make one called rows before. And I'm gonna say equal to this table dot filter for where the date of the current row you're looking at is actually less than this row dot date. Okay, you'll notice that this is nothing because there's nothing before it. This is 1 row, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. Okay, and now instead of just doing that, let's say number completed. What that's gonna give us, you'll see that that's 0, 0, 0. Notice how it's giving us a running total, 1. There's 1. There's 1 and 2. And then we're gonna say, and they're gonna add an equal to that actually to help it come in. Haha, there we go, right? Because now I have a 2 and a 1. I have a list of numbers, but what am I gonna do with that list of numbers? I'm just gonna sum them up, add them together. So let's put a sum there. So now I've got this running total that's gonna grow up and up and up and up. Let's see what happens when we put that in. We actually don't need this. Let's call this running total. Let's then make this into a chart, but let's make it into a line chart. And then instead of number, let's do running total. Let's smooth out our line and make it purple. All right, look at that. So now we have a running total of the number of tasks completed by your team. This is using a helper table. There's so many more things that you can do with dashboards and charts and graphing and pieces here as well as with these controls. Really, you can do anything you want in Coda. Coda is so extremely flexible. If you got any questions about dashboards, put them in the chat below or learn more about charts and dashboards with the Coda School. All right, catch you later.